Let's talk about LED house lighting for your church on the budget end of things. If you're like me, you've been trying to get some new house lighting and you're looking on the budget end and you've run across these SpringTree products. I've got a couple of them in for demo. I'm gonna kind of just tell you some of my initial thoughts. Well, welcome back to the channel, guys. If you're new around here, my name is Rylan. I'm the Worship and Media Arts Pastor here at CBC Owasso, and we're in the middle of the design phase of a full remodel of this worship center. And so I've got a certain budget that I'm trying to stick in, and so we've been investigating the different options when it comes to house lighting, and I've realized it's really expensive to get the really high-end nice stuff. But the question is it worth it? Should we invest $75,000 in the light source lights that will last years and years and have high CRI and are just great, well-recommended lights, when we could get maybe these for a fraction of the cost, or these for an even smaller fraction of the cost? So I decided just to get them in and actually demo them in my space, and I thought I'd show you guys the results and just give you some of my initial thoughts and maybe which way we're gonna go. Now, before we dive into these, just the reasoning for why I want to go to color mixing house lights. We're gonna be blacking out our ceiling in here, and I really wanna be able to extend the look and feel of our lighting looks out into the audience, so we're all one cohesive body, and it just breaks down that wall, that barrier between, congregation and people on the platform. And my fear is by blacking out everything above them that there will be so much light loss that it really will feel like that. So being able to extend it out with the color coming down, a nice even wash across the audience, it'll be well worth it. So currently in our house light system, we've got 56 of these dimmable LED lights. They're 120 watt, 40 degree wide floods. They are 3000 Kelvin with a CRI of 90. And so they've actually done really well. These are retrofitted on some NSI dimmers that we have that luckily will be going away. We're gonna compare just actually the light output of this light bulb to these others to kind of see in my space what I'm used to. We've got 56 of these. How many might we need at the beam angle that these are at and the brightness levels? So these two lights are actually pretty different animals. This Spatial Pendant is a $470 LED cob light. It has DMX in and out. It has PowerCon in and out. And it really is an all-encompassing light package right in here that you're gonna have to provide power to each light along the way. While the Spatial Pendant is actually low voltage lighting. So think of like LED tape style wiring. So all of these lights, at least every two, have to have a home run back to these brains. So I have a miniature brain here. It's a SpringTree DMX 150, and it can power maybe 3 of these lights, maybe 4. But it is the brain. So it's low voltage everywhere. So if you're retrofitting and you don't want to have to deal with electricity, this may be a good option. And I'm considering both of these lights. They're different animals, and as we'll see when we test in just a minute. But it would take a lot more of these 50 watt lights to compare with this 120 watt cob light. So is the amount of wiring going back to home runs in a closet worth it? Does it offset the cost of an electrician having to run things? Those are all considerations. But let's start with the Spatial Pendant. This is a 80 degree, 120 watt cob light that's RGB warm white. So it has 4 LEDs, and you can mix those and match those accordingly. Now, with this light, one thing that you will notice is as you use the different colors, the light intensity varies. So if you just want warm white, it's probably not gonna be that full 120 watt, as we'll see when we compare to our other just standard warm white bulb. If you want the brighter and you're just gonna go warm white, they have a version that's just warm white. So I'll link to all this in the description as well, so you can check it out. They have a demo program that you can kind of investigate in your space if you want to. So as we redesign the space, our ceiling that we're gonna create with pendants is probably gonna be between 20 and 25 feet. The peak of our ceiling is 26 feet, here from the floor. So this is probably shooting about that 20 to 22 feet in the air, as we'll kind of examine the wash on our ceiling instead of hanging them and looking at it from the ground. It's, you know, similar idea. So let's look at the light output of the Spatial Pendant. I've got just a stage setter here. It's a 5-channel DMX, so channel 5 is intensity, and let's just dial up that warm white. And it's got a pretty smooth dimming curve, and that is about 3000 Kelvin or so, with a little bit of a tint on the green side, I believe. I'll double check that. But it's pretty accurate. So it smoothly dims. And then if we go all 4 channels together, RGB and warm white, you can see it's a very like bluish light because it's combining all those colors into the warm white as well on top of it. So I would not want to run this there. But if you back down the blue a little bit, you can see that it gives you a decent cool white where you might want to sit around 4500 or so. The problem I have seen so far is, let's say we like this white because it gives us the fullest, you know, brightness and everything. Whenever we go to dim this, it's actually getting a little bit of a color shifting going on from orange to green to blue and then off. So I don't love that. I'm not sure exactly why it's doing it, but if you want to do long, smooth dims, I feel like that's going to be a little distracting. And so obviously that won't do that if you're just doing warm white or one of the colors. It will work fine. Let's say we go blue, green, red. On the Spatial Pendant though, whenever we bring up the warm white and all the colors, and then we go to dim it, it doesn't really have that shift back and forth. It is just what it is. And so that is a bonus for the cheaper 50-watt Spatial flat pendant. So let's see how the Spatial Pendant, the big boy, compares to the 120-watt LED cans that we've been using. Remember, we have 56 of these in our space. So just on first glance, I would say the warm white alone is about 3 times less bright as the ones we have installed now, the 120 watts. I think it does get about equal when we turn all the lights on, maybe even a touch brighter. And it may be that, you know, this is a 40 degree, this is an 80 degree, so the 40 degree is a more narrow beam, more concentrated beam versus the 80 degree. So I feel like this would blend pretty well with other lights. So the lower the hang height, the wider the beam angle, probably the better, because you're not going to get so many hot spots like you see sometimes in sanctuaries. But as far as brightness goes, you know, if you want to dial in that white like you like it, it's going to be about as bright as a 120 watt replacement LED that we're rocking now. One of the things that scares me about this light is that it has internal fans, and I don't know if you've been able to hear it if I get close. I'm so scared. But I was told by SpringTree that these actually have 3 fans in them. They're just little computer fans. You know, up in 20 feet in the air, you're probably not going to hear just a few of them, but if we put 50 of them in this space, it's going to add some white noise to what is already has a lot of white noise from our movers and stuff on stage. And it's just a replaceable, or a part that's constantly moving that I feel like would lend itself to breaking or going out. And then if that goes out and you don't even know it's out, will that cause these lights then to overheat and malfunction? So that's a consideration with these. You're not going to find anything like it for $469 on the market, but is it worth it is the question I have. Other trade-offs you're getting whenever you use a budget fixture like this is a plastic case around it. It's not hard metal or anything like that. It looks fine. You're never really going to notice that in the air. But you know, that's a trade-off that you're also having to give up. Is it's not like a metal heat sink type light. All right, so let's talk about the flat Spatial Pendants. These are 50 watt, low voltage. The cool thing about their low voltage system is that they offer other products that are low voltage, so you could utilize these in like flats that go into ceiling tiles. You could do some other things in like sconces or in old fluorescent things in maybe your foyer areas as you come in. And they could all talk through these brains that they have. And so the lights themselves are cheaper, you know, 150 bucks for the RGB warm white version. They do also have just a warm white version. That's going to be right around 3000 Kelvin. But the cost really is in the drivers that you have that send the power and the data to each light. And they, you know, they're not that expensive. And the trade-off there is, while it's cheaper for the product, you're going to have home runs to these brains in your closet somewhere, and they're going to be loud, so keep them in a closet. And that's going to be more labor and more wiring that has to go all the way back. So to be clear, you can't daisy chain DMX between lights and all of those kinds of things. It has to go back to the brain. Another drawback for me on these lights is it just comes with one wire that comes out of it, and then you have to splice in and either, you know, wire cap, or I would recommend soldering to that home run line for every single light that you're going to have. It's not the end of the world, but it's not like it just has a Phoenix connector where you can just put them together. It's actually, you're gonna have to splice these in for every single light. If we have 60 of these in our space, that's just that much more labor that's gonna be involved. For our space, I believe I'm at the place where I don't think these are the fixture for us, because it has a 100-degree beam angle. It's very wide. And for this to have enough light output to even match what we have now, we'd have to hang it either very low or have a ton of fixtures. And I just don't know that it's worth it. The other lights that we've been considering are the Elation Fuse pendants combined with the Elation Fuse compacts pendants, and at various heights in our room. So, you know, I'm asking myself, is it worth it to go ahead and invest in those? You know, I don't think the light source is attainable for us. There's other lights out there. Chauvet Ovation, I think, is one. One other thing to consider is the use of emergency backup lighting. These lights do not have that built in, where like the Elation Fuse pendant does. So at that point, you're forced to use your exit signs and extra floodlights around your building to supplement in the case of a power outage. But when it comes to the budget end of things, you got these. Pro Church Lights has come out with some new ones that even they told me in our space they don't know that they would recommend them as far as brightness at our hang height. So I just wanted to get these in and test them. So what are my final thoughts? Well, I think I've decided to take a pass on the Fuse pendants. They have bright output. Best bang for your buck, probably. But for me, the internal fans, the odd color mixing when dimming, and just, you know, knowing I'm going to have these lights up there for 20 years, how easy is it going to be to swap these in and out? I'm just not sure, so I'm going to pass on these. I think I'm also going to pass on these for our worship center, but I'm really, really interested in putting them into our youth worship center, which is a lower ceiling. And right now we have these UFO lights that really can't dim very far, and I think these would be perfect in there. These actually have a cast metal type frame. I don't know what it is, aluminum or what. And so I think they would stand the test of time in there as far as like getting hit with a ball or something like that. But in that lower ceiling space, I think they would actually be a really nice addition, especially as we move in there for like 8 months during this remodel. Now, the other thing that I really can't speak to that a lot of people ask is like, are they certified? Now, I don't know how important that is to be UL listed or CE or whatever all those things mean, but I can tell you that these are in the process of being certified. That's what SpringTree's told me. So you can always just check with them on that. They have great customer service. I will say that. Like, they answer the phone. You can talk to the guys. It's pretty awesome. These on the inside, it does say that they are CE listed. So I don't know what that means, but there is some sort of certification there. So if that's something that concerns you, I would just reach out to SpringTree and ask them yourself. So let me know in the comments, what house lights are you using? Have you had success I want to know like longevity, who's really got some that they would recommend. There's a few different other brands out there, and I'm still curious to what's worked well for you guys. But remember guys, we do a lot of great things. Let's do it all for God's glory. We'll see you in the next one.